What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, we are going to be going over the entire crypto market. We're going to be talking about some important updates and things that are happening right now that I think could have a great effect on the future or a really bad effect on the future. It depends on how you look at it. And then, of course, we will dive into some Bitcoin technical analysis as we do have some very, very big things happening at this point. So with that being said, of course, let's go ahead and first and foremost, let's jump into some news, talk about what exactly is going on in the market. Why are we starting to see the market pulling back to the downside again, and how we can expect all of this to play out. Now, it seems like the elephant in the room recently has been stablecoins, and amongst all of the craziness of UST, we are seeing that having somewhat of a domino effect to other stablecoins as well, especially Tether. Now, all of us do know the just overall size of Tether. Tether is by far the biggest and the most used stablecoin in the entire cryptocurrency world. And so for that reason, if there are concerns about it, which basically supports this entire crypto ecosystem, then that will lead to just overall concerns about the longevity and sustainability of crypto in general. Now, the majority of these concerns do come from the fact that Tether has gone through a lot of sketchy things in the past. Their overall, the way they've executed up until this point has led to some sketchy, windy roads. And so for that reason, people are concerned that we could see something similar to what we saw from UST. But I am here to kind of say that I don't see that happening. So let's kind of talk about why people are concerned and then why I don't think it's going to play out as people are, thinking the worst of, So what we know is that Tether has, again, a sketchy history. Now, the reason they have a sketchy history is due to the fact that they have lied a lot about the overall backing of their stablecoin, Tether. Now, what they initially came out to say was that Tether was going to be backed 1-to-1 to the dollar. They said that as we did see this thing growing, that they would keep a reserve in order to be able to provide that $1 to 1 USDT ratio, right? But what ended up coming out was that they were being completely not transparent about what exactly was backing Tether. And then they ended up getting fined over $40 million pretty much for the fact that they lied about what was backing Tether. Now, the problem with that is people are going to say, well, then what happens in an event in which everyone wants their Tether? Would Tether even be able to support a move of that nature, right? Would they be able to truly reach into their reserves, take those assets, and be able to provide a secure backing for every single one of those investors that is holding USDT? So that is, the sketchy part. That's what people are nervous about. Now, what ended up coming out was the fact that not only, they don't have everything back to the dollar, but they do hold assets to support the majority of USDT. They hold about 4 billion of cash, 34.5 billion in unidentified treasury bills, and 24.2 billion of its holdings were in commercial papers. So they do have assets, and these assets are relatively liquid, but it's the fact that they have been so non-transparent about the entire thing in a time right now when we saw UST itself get just completely depegged from the dollar, crashing the entire Luna ecosystem. People's nerves are on high standings right now, which I think does have a direct influence on what we have been seeing from this market, especially at this point as we are seeing crypto pull back and continue into this downturn. But overall, I think that this nervousness will subside. I don't think that this is a permanent level of nervousness. And for the fact that it's just not the same, right? So, of course, there is the nervousness because they are not completely backed dollar to stablecoin ratio 1-to-1. But we have to understand that they don't work even relatively similarly to how UST did. One thing you have to understand is that UST was backed by an algorithm. That algorithm was tied to a very, very volatile and unstable asset, which is Luna. The only way in which they were able to maintain their peg was if the Luna ecosystem was growing and there was demand for UST itself. And so once we started to see the overall protocol and the algorithm being implemented, once people were getting rid of their UST, that then led to Luna crashing, which then further increased the instability within UST, which then created this domino death spiral event in which people were just getting rid of all their UST because the whole ecosystem was crashing. Now, we've talked about that substantially on the channel, so I'm not going to go again too far into the Luna situation, of course, but what we have to understand is that UST, Tether itself, is not connected to Bitcoin realistically in terms of an algorithm or a protocol, nor is it connected to Ethereum, nor is it connected to any, for the most part, of these main major cryptos that make up the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Sure, it does support the majority of all of them in the sense that it is the largest stable coin that there is, but in a sense of would it have the capability to create a death spiral in all of crypto if it began to just very quickly depeg No, they have much more assets and much more of an ability to be able to compensate those people who are looking for that 1-to-1 ratio. And for that reason, there is a lot more safety within Tether at this point, as long as they are telling the truth in what is backing their stablecoins. So for that reason, I do not see it being the end all be all for crypto, in which Tether comes crashing down and just absolutely obliterates everyone. But it is something that people do have the right to be nervous about due to the fact that it is a little bit sketchy, right? Now, going forward, what I'm expecting is that as we do start to see this Tether situation and this UST situation and all of these things play out, we are going to see a lot more regulation on stablecoins. So kind of on the brighter note of things, some news in which we have seen is that we have been seeing an extremely strong event recently in which 44 countries met in El Salvador to discuss the banking, the unbanked, with Bitcoin. Now, this is not necessarily directly related to Tether or stablecoins in general, but it's the overall idea that the regulators at B, the people who are making all of the massive and major decisions, they are meeting. They are doing the things necessary to educate themselves and come up with these political and very educative discussions on how they can go forward to make Bitcoin and just cryptocurrency in general applicable to the entire world, which of course dramatically helps the sustainability of crypto in general. We've been seeing all of these little pictures coming out in which people were eating together. We could see central bankers and financial regulators enjoying learning about Bitcoin adoption. We can see people downloading and using a Bitcoin Lightning wallet today to actually see how it works. Things of this nature are extremely important for the longevity of crypto, because as they do learn about the use case of Bitcoin and how it can be provided and used throughout the whole world, that will help them come up with good regulation, in my opinion, that won't just absolutely destroy things like Tether, which could have a completely detrimental effect on the rest of the market. They're going to take into consideration how their overall policy can affect crypto and look at it from more of a positive light, in my opinion. Now, even if for some reason they come to the decision that they want to completely get rid of Bitcoin, for example, we can see here that China still hosts 21% of the total Bitcoin hash rate in spite of the ban. So they're not necessarily capable of, in my opinion, getting rid of Bitcoin or getting rid of crypto, but they can hurt it. And we don't want to see them against the crypto world. We don't want to see these regulators against us and, as a whole. We want to see them on board with us, figuring out ways to adopt it and make it implementable in a safe way. And for that reason, that does lead to longevity. So we've been seeing a lot of news recently, a lot of news especially related to Tether, and this bad news, this instability, this nervousness will lead to regulation, in my opinion. But considering the fact that the regulators and the people making the policy and the central bankers, they are all coming together to learn about crypto, I definitely think that it could be a positive thing and a positive light at the end of the tunnel. So that's my opinion on what all is going on in the crypto world today. There is a lot, so it is important to always check that out. But I do want to kind of shift over now at this point to some Bitcoin technical analysis. I want to talk about exactly what we are seeing from the price right now and how I'm going to be playing this thing and looking at it for the next 24 to 48 hours. So what we've seen from Bitcoin recently has been, of course, this huge drop to the downside, followed by this, kind of a consolidational / structure formation event here. Now, as we did create some structure, it was pretty obvious on the 4-hour time frames that we were forming what could be considered an ascending or rising triangle. Now, the problem with rising triangles coming out of a downtrend is that they almost always will break to the downside. I mean, almost always, like more than 80% of the time, right? Now, what we need to do is that although we were expecting this to break to the downside, it comes to a point in which we need to figure out, are we about to continue our death run down to $20,000, or are we going to finally put in the higher low from this previous low and look to finally start making our way out of this thing? Well, I'm here to offer you guys 3 support levels that I'm watching for that I think all have the potential to see the bounce back up to the upside, that also do present some amazing shorting opportunities if they are lost. Now, the way in which you're going to be able to find these support levels on this, off of this structure is very easy. It's very simple. What you're going to do is you're going to look at this rising triangle and say, where were the last 3 to 4 times that we touched the bottom side of the triangle? Well, we can see it was right here, and right here. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to then go ahead and draw horizontal lines at each one of those points. Those are going to be your breakdown targets. Those are going to be the points in which you are the most likely to resort down to before you see the bulls start to step in, the bears start to get exhausted, and then we start to see the price try to retrace to the top side. It is almost always, okay? What we can see going on right now, looky here. We drew this breakdown target yesterday over in the Patreon. As we did break to the downside, where do we come right down to? Boom. This previous breakdown target number 1, which is currently sitting right around, let's get a price label out, right around, $29,100 roughly. Now, what we know is that this is the spot in which we are at breakdown target number 1. Now, since we are at breakdown target number 1, I am expecting some support to be found relatively soon. But what's beautiful about these breakdown targets is they work very well in predicting what's going to happen next. So the way in which I'm going to go about this is I'm going to look at $29,070 as breakdown target number 1, $28,500 as breakdown target number 2, and then finally $27,700 as breakdown target number 3. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to actually accumulate at these levels because I did some accumulation throughout this this ascent right here. But what I'm going to be preparing for is possible short trades if we do lose any of these levels. I am a very, very, very bullish person on Bitcoin and crypto in general. So don't take me shorting the market as me being bearish. But do understand that I am looking to take advantage of seeing gains whether we go down or whether we go up. So when we are in a position to possibly see losses, I am not afraid to short this market and take advantage of some short gain profits as we do see the market falling in order to then use those profits to accumulate at lower levels. So my current game plan is to short Bitcoin from breakdown target number 1 to 2 to 3. If we see it lose number 1 on a 4-hour close and start to fall, again, I'm going to short it down to number 2. If we start to see it come back down here, back test number 2 maybe, and then start to fall to number 3, I'm going to short it from breakdown target number 2 to number 3. These are the 3 levels in which we have the highest chance to find some support and continue to the top side. So if they are lost, do expect us to resort back down to the next one, and if that one's lost, we're going to go right back down to the next one. So overall, over the next 48 hours, what I would be paying the most amount of attention to are these 3 breakdown targets. They are of utmost importance right now because if they are lost, there is a very, very, very high likelihood that we will resort back to the bottom side of wick here, which is currently sitting right around $25,000. And of course, at that point, there even becomes a chance that we do put in the lower low and continue this absolutely nasty and ugly bear market in which we have been experiencing. So over the next 24 to 48 hours, keep a very close eye on $29,000 to $27,000. These 3 support levels are going to be our best chance at setting the higher low and continuing to the upside. If they are all lost, do expect us to resort back down to our wick low down here. But in the next video, I will break this down even more and start to look at some of our RSIs and our MACDs and Bollinger Bands to further decide where we think this thing is going to go as we do start to interact with our key levels of support. So with that said, that's going to be about it for me today. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I know this is a little bit of a longer episode, but I want you guys to be as prepared as possible for not only bad news or good news that comes out, but as well as what you can expect from the price and how it may affect the entire market itself. Later today, we will be going over Solana, so definitely do stay tuned for that. But with that said, for this video, that's going to be about it. I'll see you all next time. Peace.